Hello, this is Dan Explains, and I'm Dan. Intelligent robots, supercomputers, and even software have been very popular antagonists and sometimes even stars in movies, books, and video games. They're almost always depicted as having some sort of awareness like a human being has. Would that actually be the case? Or would they be nothing more than good bean counters that, in spite of being maybe even more intelligent than us, would be no more aware than a literal tin can? Well, that depends. Let me explain why. This is a question that has fascinated me for a while. With computers increasing in power and AI now starting to be used in everyday life, it's becoming a more and more relevant question. AI is being used in everyday life, you might ask? And I'd say yes, right under your nose, all the time. One of the first practical, commercially useful examples is email spam filtering. If you were old enough and nerdy enough to be using computers 20 years ago, you'll know email spam filters were horrible. They generally relied on things like spammy words or phrases, or by coming from known spammer email addresses. Not very helpful when many of these spam and scam emails come from regular people's computers that got infected by viruses. Then came AI spam filtering. With AI spam filtering, when you report spam, you're not just marking a certain sender as a spammer anymore. At least not if you use a service like Gmail or Yahoo. The reported email gets submitted to an AI to train it on what spam looks like. As home computers have become more powerful, AI has moved out of the domain of supercomputers that could only be afforded by large corporations and moved into the desktop and, even the phone realm. In fact, an AI helped me edit the script. I guess they must still not be that smart, huh? Around 2015 or so, Deepfakes started to come out. These are photos, or more often videos, that look like they are a celebrity or a politician, but they aren't. These deepfakes are often made at home using a desktop computer. What deepfakers do is take a video of someone who sounds and can mimic the mannerisms of their target. An AI in their computer is then trained to imagine what the actor in the deepfake video would look like if they were the target person, and then outputs it. Scary stuff. But people aren't training these AI like you would normally train someone to, do a task. Training an AI is more like how you would train your own brain, like to write or to shoot hoops or any kind of activity that requires a lot of practice before you can become good at it. Something you'll notice when you're doing those activities, however, is that they become second nature to you. For example, you aren't conscious of having to form each letter as you write it on the paper. You just want to write the letter A, and you put the pen to the paper, and out comes an A. That's the key here. A trained AI isn't thinking about what it's doing. Like you popping out the letter A, it's just marking spam emails or taking people's faces and making them look like a Disney character. These are clearly not conscious actions, but we may be close to an AI that at least seems conscious and have processes that mimic thought processes in the human brain. So, in order to go a little deeper into this, I think we need to understand a bit better what makes us conscious. Hint: scientists don't know. Well, how do you even know you're conscious? How do you know everyone else is? Is it a thought that makes you conscious? Or would you be conscious because you have any kind of brain and you're alive? There are no scientific answers to these questions. Although if you're a spiritual person, you would probably pin consciousness on the soul. Regardless, I think it comes down to this: quantum randomness. And yes, this is conjecture on my part. If you watch my second video, I talk about how quantum randomness makes fate physically impossible. That video, if you can cringe your way through it, will help you understand what I'm talking about. Link in the description. Unlike inside a computer simulation, if you perform an experiment in the real world, it will never play out exactly the same way. At least not on the quantum level. While that may not affect the outcome of your experiment, on a macro scale, our brains have over 100 billion neurons and over a quadrillion connections. Also, some mechanisms in our brains may even be designed to take advantage of quantum effects to randomize outcomes. This could be what gives us free will. If you think about it, without quantum randomness, every thought you were ever going to have would have been predetermined before you were born. Your brain would be more like a complex factory rather than the seat of a conscious being. So, I think that answers the question for at least some AI. If there isn't at least a little bit of randomness in its thought processes somehow, it wouldn't be aware. So that self-driving Tesla you got isn't going to start thinking for itself and run you over because of how much you put it through. On second thought, that actually has nothing to do with consciousness. Nice, Tesla. Most computers are actually built to get rid of any quantum randomness, which is starting to become an issue at the scale microprocessors are built on. Usually, the only quantum randomness a computer sees is from ionizing radiation hitting a microchip in the computer. There are already devices called random number generators, specifically for adding randomness, and with how hard it is to avoid quantum weirdness in the current chip manufacturing techniques, I think it would be pretty easy to design a chip that adds quantum randomness when asked to do certain calculations. If you are able to introduce this randomness, not only in AI learning, but in AI thinking, it might be possible for it to be an aware, conscious machine. But, as you can see, software alone wouldn't cut it. You can only generate so-called pseudo-random numbers with software. Sorry, Skynet. So, a machine that could be conscious probably wouldn't happen by accident. Or maybe it could. When training a new AI, it helps to have better random numbers. So yeah, using a chip like the one I proposed to get better random numbers might make the AI conscious by accident. So, this brings us to the question, what is consciousness? We know we have it, or at least I know I do. I'm not sure about you, but that's a topic for another video. From a scientific perspective, consciousness must be some kind of innate property of the universe that pops up when certain criteria are met. So, all AI made like I described would probably be conscious from that point of view. From a spiritual point of view, you probably need a soul to be conscious. In which case, God would probably need to make the AI a soul. I don't think he'd do that, but you never know. I mean, it's not like there's some kind of spirits running around that could just take possession of an AI, right? If you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and ding the bell to get notified when I post new videos. Also, please support me on Patreon, link in the description. The more people support me, the more time I can dedicate to making videos like this one. So, until next time, have a great week.